Okay, picture this. You're standing in the wealthy, perfume-scented streets of ancient Baghdad. It's an absolutely stunning city, right? But at the very center of it all sits a massive palace harboring a terrifying, deadly ultimatum. In this explainer, we are diving straight into a high-stakes story, where a single, slightly misplaced word literally means the executioner's blade.
Imagine the entire capital completely paralyzed by fear. So, the Sultan has a daughter, Princess Zoya, famous for her unmatched intellect. And to find a suitor who's actually worthy of her, the Sultan sets up an impossible test. You answer 3 riddles correctly, you win her hand. You fail, well, you meet the executioner. And let me tell you, the list of dead suitors was growing insanely fast. Princes, wealthy merchants, they all tried, failed, and paid the ultimate price. The dread hanging over the palace gates was palpable. But then, enter our guy, Zayn. What's so fascinating here is the stark contrast. Zayn is no armored warrior or magical hero. He's the ultimate underdog. He's got 0 gold, just a tiny room full of books, and a serious belief in the power of the mind. So when he rolls up to the palace in his old, threadbare but clean clothes, the guards just laugh at him. But Zayn, vulnerable, sweating, yet fiercely courageous, steps right into the lethal arena anyway.
Now, he's standing before the Sultan, and the whole court is just holding its breath. The Sultan's heavy voice booms out the first ancient riddle, and you have to imagine the terrifying silence in that room. What walks on 4 legs in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 3 in the evening, and is weakest when it has the most legs? Out of the corner of his eye, Zayn can literally see the executioner readying his gleaming sword.
All the elite scholars in the room are totally stumped, overthinking it as usual. But Zayn, he confidently breaks the tension. He looks the Sultan dead in the eye and says, "It's a human. You know, a baby crawls on hands and knees in the morning of life, walks upright as an adult in the afternoon, and leans on a cane, a 3rd leg, in the evening of old age. And as an infant, with the most limbs touching the ground, we're at our absolute weakest." The court just gasps. He actually survived round 1. But the Sultan is not letting him off that easy. He immediately raises the stakes. Zayn takes a deep, ragged breath under the crushing pressure of hundreds of staring eyes as the second riddle hits. What makes a person richest but is unseen, cannot be stolen, grows when shared, and without it, a living person is dead? The room erupts in whispers. Is it happiness? Love? Nope. Zayn brilliantly fires back that true wealth is ilm, or knowledge. Think about it. You can't see it, thieves can't steal it, and unlike gold, when you share knowledge, it actually multiplies. Without it, you're just wandering in the darkness of ignorance, basically dead while still breathing. You can practically see the Sultan's respect for this impoverished underdog skyrocketing, while right next to him, the corrupt Wazir is slipping into a quiet, furious panic. So the Wazir realizes this nobody might actually win the whole thing. He leans over, whispers poison into the Sultan's ear, and completely changes the rules. This is no longer a riddle, it's a philosophical trap. What is the most powerful thing the Sultan demands? It breaks stone, melts iron, is unseen and cannot be stopped. Zayn's heart is pounding. Time? No. Time rusts iron, it doesn't melt it. Fire? No, you can clearly see fire. He's completely boxed in. The silence stretches. The executioner takes a heavy step forward. He's seconds away from death. But right then, a sudden, powerful gust of wind rushes through the high windows, violently shaking the heavy iron curtains. Zayn's eyes snap wide open, a massive, life-saving epiphany. The wind. It erodes stone over centuries. It's totally unseen, and crucially, without the wind, the oxygen feeding a blacksmith's forge, fire could never burn hot enough to melt iron. Boom. Wind is the invisible architect of that destruction. Looking at how this all played out, Zayn didn't just get lucky. He systematically dismantled this intellectual gauntlet with pure philosophical brilliance. He mastered human nature, the value of the mind, and the invisible forces of the physical world. The court absolutely erupts. The Sultan is blown away. Zayn won.
But wait, just when he's victorious, the treacherous Wazir completely pulls the rug out from under him. He manipulates the Sultan, claiming a princess's husband can't just be book-smart, he has to be a seasoned warrior. So they force our exhausted hero into a suicidal quest. He has exactly 3 days to travel to the Cursed Valley of Death and retrieve an ancient magic mirror, or face permanent exile.
Zayn has 0 choice. He grabs a horse and rides straight into the brutal, scorching desert. After 2 grueling days of sandstorms and blistering heat, he hits the Valley of Death. It's this oppressive, terrifying place of black earth and screaming silence. He finds these bat-infested ruins with a massive door. No keyhole, just a complex puzzle.
Relying purely on raw intellect instead of brute force, Zane cracks the code, and the heavy doors groan open.
Inside, the suspense just reaches a boiling point. Guarding the mirror is a monstrous djinn, made entirely of swirling smoke and roaring fire. It laughs at Zane's tiny iron dagger, demanding that to cross the flames, Zane must sacrifice his absolute most precious possession.
Now, Zane is broke. He doesn't have gold to give. Standing at the edge of incineration, he searches his soul. He realizes his only true possessions left are his ego and his mortal terror. So in this profound moment of clarity, he mentally strips away his fear. He accepts his vulnerability and just steps directly into the roaring flames. And miraculously, because he conquered his inner demons, the fire feels as cool as flowers against his skin. He grabs the mirror, and the entire cavern starts collapsing around him.
And now we are in a literal ticking clock thriller. It's 3 p.m. on the final day as he escapes the ruins. By 4:30 p.m., the Wazir's backup plan hits. 6 heavily armed, masked assassins ambush him. He dodges them, but by 5:45 p.m., his bleeding, exhausted body, he actually took a grazing arrow, is pushed to the absolute limit. He's in a desperate race against the setting sun.
Surrounded by killers, he knows he can't win a sword fight. So, his intellect saves him yet again. As the sun dips, he pulls out the magic mirror, angling it to catch the piercing rays of the sun, and flashes that intense, blinding light straight into the assassin's eyes. It disorients them just long enough for Zahn to blast through the gap and gallop toward Baghdad.
Back in the capital, the tension in the throne room is suffocating. The sun is literally touching the horizon. The Wazir is practically glowing, urging the Sultan to declare Zane dead. The Sultan is heavy-hearted, literally raising his hand to cancel the agreement when, bam, the heavy mahogany doors blast open. Zane stands there, battered, covered in desert dust and his own blood, gasping for air but clutching that wrapped mirror.
He stumbles forward to present the prize. But to really grasp this climax, you need to understand what this artifact actually is. It's not for checking your hair. It's a terrifying, mystical judge of character that reflects the absolute, undeniable truth of a person's inner soul, their real intents, and their darkest hidden sins.
The Wazir, desperate to keep his power, screams that it's just a cheap piece of glass. And in a fatal act of sheer arrogance, he tears the cloth off the mirror himself to prove it. He stares into it, but instead of his face, the entire court gasps in horror. His reflection is a monstrous, venom-dripping black cobra, completely shadowed by the treacherous sins he's committed. Just absolute nightmare fuel.
The absolute truth is laid bare. The Sultan is furious. The Wazir is instantly dragged away in heavy iron chains down to the very dungeons he sent innocent men to. And our guy Zane, the exhausted, sweat-drenched mortal who relied on nothing but his brain, his courage, and the truth, rightfully earns Princess Zoya's hand and becomes the heir to the empire.
You know what the Sultan does next? He doesn't lock the mirror away in a vault. He places it right in the center of the city square for all to see. It's this permanent, glaring reminder that external beauty and physical armor will always fade, but inner truth, unyielding character, and knowledge, that is the ultimate, unbreakable power.
Which brings us to the end of our journey today. But I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder long after this explainer is over. In a world completely obsessed with outward appearances, filters, and projecting a certain image, if you walked up to that square in Baghdad and looked deep into the magic mirror today, what truth would it reveal about you? Because at the end of the day, the truest reflection is the one we simply can't hide from.